it's Dr. Fred, and welcome to another episode of Welcome to Humanity podcast. It is my honor and my pleasure and privilege to be with you today, and the opportunity always exists to introduce my guests to just wonderful people who are up to great things in the world. And, I've had this run since I started this podcast of just introducing some fabulous people seemingly on the shoulders of the last ones who are up to making a difference or just being beautiful or just carrying on a life that is inspiring or moving to all of us. And sometimes they don't know it and sometimes they do know it. And we just have open conversations on Welcome to Humanity where we get to shine a light on the spectacular, extraordinary nature of what it is to be human and specifically what it is to be the human that you have become. So today is really, really great. Katie Lynn is someone I have known. I certainly remember the day that I met Katie Lynn and sort of how we got started. I think I was on one of Katie's Facebook Live very early, long before I ever even knew what a Facebook Live even was. I was coming in from a 10-year nomadic run, like what the hell's going on down here on Earth? And Katie Lynn was pretty much having her boots on the ground and was making hay in multiple different arenas. And she heard what I was up to and gave me all sorts of praise, all sorts of, Fred, you have no idea that the world's waiting for you. And that sits with me every day, Katie Lynn, that when you said you have no idea the level of clientele that are desperately awaiting your services, it gave me a real push to alter and to fundamentally transform who I am in the world. And who I am, and Katie Lynn is, through a mutual pretty good buddy we have, has been kept abreast of me and my entire paradigmatic shift from conventional psychiatry to being the coach and the podcaster that I've become. In no small part on the shoulders of that one comment that Katie Lynn gave me, like, you have no idea how many people out here are interested in what you really have to offer. Now, as I walk through life and tap into some of the social media posts and our mutual friend here and there, the father of Katie Lynn's most recent production that I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about, I learned that Katie Lynn's been doing this for everybody. She actually does this in her way of being. She actually opens up lights that we didn't even know were available to turn on. She actually gives pathways that otherwise not only were unsuspected, they were unexistent to people who are looking to make a difference in their life. And she just naturally does that by being her, whether or not she's hired or whether she's your friend or whether you just kind of get a glimpse of her on social media. So without further ado, I just want to introduce you, my listeners, to today's unbelievable guest. Like, too big of an honor to have Katie Lynn with us. Katie Lynn, welcome to Humanity.
Thank you so much, Fred. Oh my goodness, that introduction was wow. Wow. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to know you and to witness your evolution. And I still firmly believe that there are so many people that are inspired by and transformed by your presence and your wisdom in this field. And I'm very excited to be here today and to have this conversation with you.
Well, great. That is so cool. And it's kind of funny. Katie Lynn and Sanyika, her husband and father of Ezra, and we'll hear a little bit about that. I think we can't go very far without at least mentioning that dude. So around the time that Katie Lynn was meeting Sanyika, really around that time, like that day, I was early on. Like that day, I was there. And I was really just starting my relationship with Sanyika. Katie was really starting her relationship with Sanyika. And truth be told, I was also ramping up in sort of the real time, my relationship with Alexandra. So, here we were coming out of the gates like Fred and Sanyika, and there were our queens waiting for us or being with us or ready for us, for which we were ready. And both Sanyika and I have created what looks like just unbelievable relationships that launched from about that very week. We're talking about these relationships starting really like the gauntlet going down on both of these relationships were within a week of each other. Like, okay, I got this. And here we were leapfrogging. Then I got married. Then you had a baby. Who knows what the hell's coming next? If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about the evolution of that relationship, because that's a pretty big deal for you. And indeed, you have a product a month ago that shows it's a big deal.
That relationship was a huge deal for me. And it still is a big deal for me because I can remember my single years and having been married for 4 years from 2010 to 2014, that was the legal length of my marriage. It actually in person lasted about a year and a half. And moving through that at what I felt was a very young age, I was 24, 25, 26, 27, still finding myself entering into motherhood for the first time and coming out of it very wounded. And not just very wounded, but with a son who came with his own soul assignment to really shine the light onto my dark places with regard to men and the masculine. And I remember driving in my car and playing Beyonce's song, Who Runs the World, Girls, and my son in the backseat going, well, Mom, what about the boys? And that was a profound moment for me that kicked off my adventure down the rabbit hole into healing my relationship with men and the masculine, and spent the next 4 years single and literally undoing all the conditioning as much as possible that I had around relationships and men and women and what it meant to be in a powerful partnership, and literally preparing for the moment that you just spoke of where I would meet Sanyika. And interestingly enough, the universe spent quite a bit of time trying to get him and I together. I had a few close friends over the course of a year tell me, you need to meet him. You need to meet him. And you're friends on Facebook and you should reach out to him. And I go, we're friends on Facebook. I've never spoken to this man in my life. I don't know who he is. I know nothing of him. Come to find out we were swimming in the similar circles, just circling around each other for a few years. And when we met, my goodness, it was like the universe just conspired to keep us together, really. And we even at one point, I'm sure you know this, 3 months in, hit our edges with regard to our wounding and our trauma, stories, and separated for a period of time. I want to say it was a month maybe. And that was in real service to us getting very honest about what our intentions were with each other and what our commitments were moving forward and who we really wanted to be. And that was like the universe saying, look, you have an opportunity to create something that most people will never get to experience in their lifetime with regard to love and partnership and relating. You're either going to be in or you're going to be out. And we were very attuned to that awareness and had many conversations and said, look, we're in on this. We're going to explore what we have, what we bring, and be courageous in our relating. We are going to be honest in our relating, and we're going to be very committed in our relating. And that's how it's been thus far. And we've had so many things move so fast. Like you spoke to our son, our baby son, Ezra, who arrived July 31st. And even that has been such a journey because we had so many conversations about having a child prior to his creation, and spent about 6 months really in the process of allowing whatever would be to be and seeing it from seed, from idea, from us questioning, oh my gosh, are we ready to be parents? Are we ready to do this together? Having so many confronting conversations because, parental wounding comes up and not enoughness comes up, and we question, are we good enough to be parents? Are we ready to be parents? Can we do this together? And then diving in and realizing that when we collaborate in so many different ways, including becoming parents, we really make fantastic things.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really extremely well put. And, the two of you, when you are collaborating, it's not just a matter of making fantastic things. You're so formidable. You're nearly indomitable. There's like a space of not only how it's inspiring how you have each other, but what I want you to get is a space of all of us feeling like you have us. Like we're safe in your presence. Like this is a natural experience of anyone who knows you and Sanyika, which is we're safe in your presence. We got this. And there's something like, I don't need to have coaching lessons with you to know that. There's like, look what's there. That's in our presence. We can walk with some degree of confidence and authority because you're here with each other. And that's the level of beacon that you two put forth. And there's something so unlikely about the two of you. Maybe the biracial aspect at least comes jumping off the page as, wow, that just got incorporated. That's not even the essence at all of what you are. It's sort of like the perfect yin yang, the perfect black white, the perfect all in or not, the perfect, the perfect what you described became available after those 3 months. Like, what is your commitment? What is really here? Are you in or are not? Are you going to miss out, or are you going to take a big bite out of life?
Yes.
And that's who the two of you really are. So love and partnership and awareness, as you speak to it, I start realizing that the impact on me and my relationship has been non-negligible, to say the very least. And there's like, we forge new ways of being in relationships by seeing that other relationships went there. So we can go there now. We can do that. You've been a real example of that for probably more than me and Alex, but at least Alex and I. And it hasn't come without bumps and bruises, without some blood, sweat, and tears, right? I mean,
oh my gosh, Fred,
it looks so pretty. I mean, it looks like it's pretty, like it's no pretty problem, but.
Fred, I am so grateful that you spoke to this, because Sanyika and I have had multiple conversations about this where, especially in the work that I do, we hear people say, well, I want what you have. Or we'll hear people say, I want what Katie and Sanyika have. And I love hearing that. And also there's an aspect of me that goes, are you really ready for what a partnership like this will call forth from you, from within you, and ask you to look at? And are you ready to face the fire, and not in a way that is meant to be scary, or even from the space of believing that you don't have the capacity, but really from the space of thinking that, it is not everything is what it seems to be on Instagram. You know what I mean? And I would tell you straight up, Sanyika and I have a fantastic relationship. We are as happy as we look on Instagram and Facebook, and we're very intentional about that. And that does not mean that there are not moments where we are not moving through our stuff and unpacking things, because our journey is our top value is integrity for our relationship, which starts at the individual level. So if I am moving through something, it is a part of me being in integrity to presence that with him, and then to resource myself so that I can explore that. And he has been one of the deepest catalyzers for healing within me with regard to insecurity, with regard to being seen, with regard to how deeply I will allow myself to love, how deeply I will allow myself to surrender, right? Because I came from the archetype of strong, independent, I don't need no man background, right? My roots in the traditional feminist sense run deep, and I love women and am all about women's empowerment and am a stand for them. And there was a lot to be undone there in order to create the space for receiving a man, and not just a man, but a man with a presence like Sanyika. Right. And
not too many of those guys out there. That's quite a presence you're hanging out.
Quite a presence. It's quite a presence. And especially when you have a partner, when you're calling in this kind of relationship, there's a level of attunement in this dynamic where nothing goes unseen. Exactly. It's like he can walk into a space and I, within seconds, can feel something is happening. And it's sometimes even before he can feel that it's happening, and vice versa. And so with that level of attunement in a partnership, it keeps you real honest. And you have no option, unless you're going to opt out, but to look at what's here. What's here? What's the elephant in the room? What are we going to walk through together? What are we going to support each other through? And how are we going to hold this space such that I am honoring the container of our relationship while also honoring your sovereignty at the same time? And that's a real dance. And there have been moments where it's been uncomfortable. One of my favorite things to talk about with my clients is I traditionally have had an avoidant attachment style, and was very afraid of confrontation, because my programming was confrontation equals end. It equals the end. So any type of confrontation for me meant that it was the end of the relationship. And one of the things that, especially during the first 6 months of our relating together, was, one, we needed to learn how to argue. And two, my self-talk was, stay, Katie, stay in the room, don't leave, stay in the room, be with it, breathe, right? That was what my self-talk sounded like, because my nervous system was wired for exit. Where is the exit, And that's a very real thing that I got to share with Sanyika, and it had nothing to do with him. It had nothing to do with me not wanting to be with him, with me not wanting to sit in conversation, with me not wanting to understand. It had everything to do with, I have spent upwards of 30 years in this pattern, and it's worked for the most part at keeping me safe for 30 years. And now I'm here with you, committed to moving through it so that it doesn't run me anymore. I can run it. And we've made huge leaps in that arena. But I also want to presence that is a very real scenario where we would have moments where I'm like literally just saying, stay in the room, Katie, stay in the room. Mm-hmm. There's not a tiger in the room. You're just having a conversation that's very uncomfortable, that's triggering your nervous system right now.
Thank you. Really well said again. And it really paints a picture to, it's hard to call it struggles. Maybe challenges is better. Like there's some hurdles and challenges, obstacles, real wounds. It's not all, you don't want to be too trite here. It's not all fun and games. But my goodness, even last night, last night I got a post with you guys being at the theater, and it was like, wow, look at how much fun you're having and how beautiful you look like. Great seats and great show, and, makes so much sense. And it's family first, and, whatever kind of organic food sitting on a table with you. And you're like, I want what Sanyika and Katie have. And there's a part of you is like, all right, that's all great. And are you ready becomes a real and honest, like the next question.
Absolutely.
You're not just ready for the gifts of having a relationship that work, but in order to have those gifts, you got to walk through the shadow quite a bit here. You got to,
for sure.
You got to seriously pay attention to the places that are damaged or injured or wounded.
Yep, absolutely. It's a dance with the shadow, I would say. Like, I don't know that we're ever, honestly, I can't say that I would believe that we're ever off the dance floor until we're complete with this lifetime, in the dance with our shadow. And I also want to say that, because I think people could hear that and go, gosh, well, then what's the point if it's going to be so quote unquote hard, or if there are these obstacles, or if there are these tough, sticky moments in relating, then is it worth it? Because in my previous iteration, I would literally tell people, I don't want a relationship. It's not worth it to me. Yeah. And the hassle, the struggle, the whatever, fill in that blank, right? And I can say at this point in my life, having walked through so many beautiful, sticky, courageous, difficult, confronting conversations, they are the gateway to the intimacy that I would always say I craved. And at this point, they're the gateway to levels of intimacy that I didn't even know were possible in this lifetime here on this planet. There is a level of connection and a level of fulfillment and joy and gratitude and intimacy and sexiness and just indescribable feelings that are available when we crack ourselves open in that way alongside somebody who's willing to be with us, like you said, through that fire. And we come out the other side and it's like, ooh, yes, the depth, the breadth of our connection is profound. And so it's worth every second.
It's the it that you're saying is it worth it. I really know, a couple of days ago, Alexandra and I were dealing with some topic that was in my world becoming stale. It seemed like it was the 507th time we're going over the same shit. And it's just like, I don't want to keep going over this shit if it's not going to get anywhere. And so I'm actually not sure it's worth it to come at this topic again. So what I'm going to do, I threaten like a kid, what I'm going to do is just like, it's become, it's like, hey, you win some, you lose some. It looks like we lost this one. And, let's just chalk it up as somewhere where we're never going to make any gain. That seems like a bit of a masculine thing to do because Alexander's like, dude, we're not going to do that. That's not how this is going to go. We're going to come at this again. And you have no business saying that this can never get better. You have no business saying that we're stuck and we're going to stay stuck. Yeah. So I roll my eyes, take a breath, take a sip, like, okay, and it's like, and we rock into this area that we had no idea we had never ventured into yet. On the 507th time was the charm. So we were like, all right. And we dug in and got to spaces underneath this wound that I really had no idea existed. And now what we got in Alex and I was like sparring core wounds.
Wow.
Like it was like my core wound right up against her core wound, and deep love and compassion for this thing that is so effing irritating all the time.
Yep.
Until I see its source as, oh, that's just core wound. That's just who you are. It's and our love catapulted into a new level as a function of somehow her drawing me back. Like, look at that. Those things, it's not for the faint of heart, this relationship stuff. It really isn't. If you're not ready, then dude, stay out of relationship if you're not ready. Because it's big time. Yeah.
Yes. And no shame in it.
No shame.
My goodness, no shame in it. If there's an awareness of, I am not ready, like beautiful, more power to you. I am not here to convince you to be ready, because it isn't for the faint of heart. And I love that you brought up this, for the 507th time, because I am by nature what I like to call a nerd. I'm a nerd. So I love to read about relationships. I love to study these things. And I remember being single and somebody was asking me, why are you studying men so much? And I said, why wouldn't I study men? I'm about to be with one for a long time. Why wouldn't I learn? Why wouldn't I, it's like, you don't buy a car and then not research the car. You know what I mean? Not learn about what you're getting into here. So for me, I feel that way about relationships. And there's are you familiar with Gottman? The Gottman Institute?
A little bit.
Okay.
Not a scholar by any stretch.
Okay, awesome. So I'm dipping my toes into their universe, and there's a book called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, and I started to dive into that just to get curious. And one of the things that is said in that book is that you'll actually, in a healthy marriage, there will be arguments that you never resolve. And that actually seeking resolution doesn't look like, quote unquote, fixing anything. It's more about being present with the discomfort and the nature of the disagreement itself in service to the intimacy that's available there, rather than, like you said, getting the win or taking the loss. In the dialogue, it's more about, can I be present to the fact that this may never be, quote unquote, fixed? That this is something that we will circle around and circle around and circle around. And that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yep. That was so liberating for me.
Thank you. I really got this idea, as you speak to it, again, for the listener's sake, but really for me and you, and then Sanyika and Alexandra too, you might as well, is this idea that we really did launch at about the same minute. And then in some ways, I don't know how much you two are modeling after the two of us, but we really, it isn't like we use you as our beacon. I'm not going to say that, but the advances that I get to see Sanyika making as a man, as a partner, as a lover, as a friend, as a protector, as a human, as a citizen, as a contributor, on the shoulders or alongside of his queen. There's like, oh yeah, I got me a queen too, Sanyika. So I get to take these massive strides that aren't available if I don't have a queen. It's just not.
That right there, Fred, is so powerful. And that was something I really struggled with wrapping my head around as a concept when I was single before meeting Sanyika. Was this idea, and it's spoken about in a few different places, that the queen provides access to levels of life that her king might not access without her presence.
I'm going to go with no flippin' way.
Cannot. And that blew my mind when I read it on paper. I was like, no way, right? We're here. We're infinite possibility, infinite. And it's like, yeah, infinite possibility when you have the right alchemy, when you have the right setup. And for some people, the most powerful setup to have is the king with his queen. And I 100% agree with you, Fred. I have conversations with women where I said, there are aspects of yourself that you will not be able to heal until you have a king by your side, until there is that partner in your life, because he is the one who can stand with you and also not stand for your BS.
Yeah.
And see right through it and have no issue with saying, I love you. And this is not you. This is your wounding. This is your story. This is the narrative. Ooh, it's a powerful, powerful thing. And I've sat back and watched many men step in with their queen and they become, wow, men you didn't even know could be possible from who you knew them to be prior to her existence, right? It's like rocket fuel. Yeah.
I'm certainly someone who meets that criteria with Alexandra. You know, you talk about a couple of different things come to mind as you speak to the genesis of this, which is who you were with, you know, stay in room, don't exit. You hang right here. Discomfort, really massive discomfort, chilling discomfort, like tricky or threatening or, you know, now I got to face my shame, my blame, my guilt, my aggression, my impulses, my promiscuity, my FUs, all like all of it. It's right here, you know? And it's like, look, I don't want to deal with this. So I'm going to leave the room now. No, I'm not, because I'm committed to not leaving the room, but I could leave the room, but I don't want, what is it you're saying over there? Like, cause I can't even keep track. I just working to stay in the room. You have that. And then you also have the other thing, which you just alluded to, which is, I can imagine that there's some women when you say there are things that you're not going to be able to access until you have a king next to you who reject that instantly. Like, I don't need no effing man, Katie.
Sure. I used to be her.
This. Yeah, right? Right?
Yep.
You get a pretty good life if you live with, I don't need no effing man, and I'm going to leave the room before it gets even more uncomfortable. You get a pretty good life.
Absolutely. You do. I call it like, you know, when you go bowling and maybe you're beginning, maybe it's your first time bowling and they have that option to put the bumpers in the lane. You know, so that you don't put every ball in the lane as you're starting. You can actually knock some pins down. That life for me was life with bumpers on, because it was, just like you said, the exact verbiage, it was a good enough life. It was a pretty good life. That's exactly what it was. It was a pretty good life. Nothing much to complain about, but also nothing much to write home about, right? It was very middle of the road. There's enough happiness to keep me going. There's enough sorrow to keep me sad. It's just middle of the road. And I actually shared a moment like this a few weeks ago on social where I was so about my business. I can remember telling my mom, look, I am never going to be married. I am going to have a career. I'm going to have an amazing career. I'm going to have a cute dog, a beautiful car, and an amazing home. That's it. I am not having children. I am not getting married. That's it. Which was, you talk about core wounds. Oh my goodness, right? I didn't want anything to do with any other humans because of my fear of intimacy and relating. And I wrote a post talking about this night where I had this profound awareness. We had just done so much work in the yard. We had had a full day of client work. And then after our client work, we started working in the yard and, you know, we're getting bit by mosquitoes. Sanyika's, you know, aerating grass with this thing and he's working hard and he's sweating. And I'm like laying mulch, making the flower beds pretty, and I'm in gloves and we're just doing this together. And then we stood on the porch and the yard looked totally different afterwards. And there was this palpable moment where my mind said, gosh, Katie, you couldn't buy this. You can't buy this. If you were single, you could not go to a store and buy this experience, this feeling right now of what it's like to build something with somebody and what it's like to experience life with somebody who sees you and loves you and you see them and you love them and you are literally making memories together that bring such deep gratitude and joy and happiness. And you'll tell your children about them. And when your children get married, you'll share stories about how you worked hard in the yard because that's what you did. And that to me is parts of the story that I love writing and I couldn't write by myself, you know, if I was solo. And that to me is like, yeah, life was really awesome when I was single. And it's so much juicier in this relationship, so much juicier. It
is, you know, again, it's almost like if we can't share it, then we can't even experience it in something like this. These are, you know, I'm somehow moved by a post that Sanyika left probably over a year ago. I think that Wednesday is your garbage day. I could be wrong about that, but I think if I recall the post.
Yep, trash cans go out Tuesday night.
And there's something like, why do I do the garbage? Why do I do the garbage? And there's something like, with almost like with a smile, because, I forgot exactly what to post, but it's very moving, just like, because that's my commitment. That's my responsibility. That's what's here. And it's not a matter of whining or creating greater troubles. It's a matter of doing the work necessary to create a framework so that there can be growth and development from inside the loving partnership that we get to create with another person in these unbelievably tricky and troubling times.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
In the midst of all this is what we get to explore. The question I want to know is, I'm going to look at your bio, which I appreciate you sending to me, and I just want to point to something. Mother, psychotherapist, transformational coach, and speaker. Yeah. And, dedicating your life to the catalyst of transformation, to creating a life of pleasure, purpose, prosperity, and power.
Yeah.
And of course, Katie, you throw in that one thing, like the trickster is like, you have worked with millionaires, millennials, mothers, serial killers, and then serial killers.
Serial killers.
Okay, yeah. Yep. And then millionaires, millennials, mothers, entrepreneurs, and then this serial killers. Does those serial killers include someone even more than, and when you say it's the plural, I know Sanyika's a serial killer. That's one. But when you say serial killers, that suggests that you've actually worked with more than one serial killer. And really, what do you do for these coaches? What do you do for these clients? What do you do? Yeah. What is here? Who do you get to be for people who want to work with you?
Yeah. Amazing. So the serial killers thing that's more speaking to the time that I worked in prison.
I see. There you go.
And having some of the most profound clients on my caseload, right? Who had Lifetime movies made about them, whose journeys were so out of the norm and out of the box. And you know what, Fred? You hit it on the head, like putting it in there as the trickster, right? Because it's to catch the eye of the reader and go, wait, serial killers? What? Like, how? They were some of the most profound women I've ever had to work with. I've ever gotten the opportunity to work with. You know what I mean? There was one that I worked with who, interestingly enough, every session she would tell me, I pray you find an incredible man. I pray you deserve the best relationship in the world. She would tell me that every session. And for that, I am grateful. But what do I do? Goodness gracious. I would say,
let me reframe it so that it does. When someone says, when you're like, I think I have room for another client, or I'm looking to start a mastermind, or I have a workshop that I'm ready to throw, a queen workshop or something that I'm ready to be with. It is at that point, I'm wondering, what is the outcome, your intention, your vision, your intention is aimed at for a woman who chooses to work with you, or a group of women who chooses to meet with you and to exploit or learn from or extract from who you are as someone who now, self-proclaimed divine queen, and rightly so. Like, who do you then get to be for these women? What are they going to get? What's in it for them, I guess, is the sort of the raw question.
Yeah. I believe you touched on it in the intro in suggesting that sort of a permission slip for women to meet their own magnificence. And this was something that was actually sparked by my time working in prison with women, because prior to that opportunity, I said, I will never work with women. I can't stand women. Being a woman, right? That was another part of my healing journey, was this fact that I was walking around saying I can't stand women, and I am a woman. And
yeah, that's a rough thing to reconcile, isn't it? Hard to love yourself if you can't stand women and you are one.
Yep, absolutely. And so for me, working in these spaces with women, particularly in the institutions, realizing, oh my gosh, these women are magnificent. The power, how dynamic they are, how intelligent, how loving, how compassionate, how intuitive. I pray that all women get to experience their brilliance. And the quickest way to experience our brilliance as women is to get around other women who have and believe to their core that women are magnificent, that we are brilliant, because that belief at its root and in its purest form is so liberating. And to have a taste of it, and to be able to stand next to it, can be uprooting enough and jarring enough to shake awake some of us who haven't yet awoken to our brilliance and our magnificence. And so it is my hope to when I say I have a space, you have space for a one-on-one client, or I have space to start a mastermind, or I'm going to do this event, or I'm going to be out and speaking to people. It is my hope that I can be the mirror and the light so that, a woman can say, I'm wrestling with this. What do you think I should do? And they can look at me and have a moment of, oh, I know what's my truth. I know my truth. And it might not be comfortable. It might not be what I want to hear. And I also know that I have the power and the integrity and the courage to move through it and into it with conviction and with grace and with compassion. And so that's my intention. I'm not the coach that comes in with like, you're going to make more money, or you're going to lose weight, or you're going to call in your king and he's going to be here by the time we're done. I am the coach that can assure you that no matter what we're working with or working through, you will meet yourself. And that is quite possibly the greatest gift you could give to the planet, is to meet yourself and to be with who you are and to walk as who you are in this world and who you came to be.
There we have it, folks. Drive carefully. Thank you so much for showing up. And don't forget to try the veal on the way out. You will meet yourself. I was just looking yesterday at my last 5 or 6 relationships, just last night, actually, at 5 or 6 relationships leading up to Alexandra. And, they were all in service of who I then got to be as I've now unfolded in this relationship. Part of it is because Alexandra has done the work to know at the very immutable, unshakable, unflappable, very simply grounded truth of her own divine feminine goddess magnificence. That's just as true as the sun. That's just the way that shit is. It's just the way it is. That is never not true.
Yeah.
Even when she feels lousy, it's not true. Even if for a moment she forgets that it's true, that doesn't even make it true. And there is something about, I think of Mama Gina or Esther Perel or, even Kim Anami or, some of these players. Carolyn Hauser is another one who comes to mind. She's someone who I interviewed 10 podcasts ago. It's almost like an unconcealing. Maybe it's a way of delivering something that's already there. You don't have to teach someone that they're magnificent. You just have to move the shit out of the way that had them think they weren't. There's no additives. This is the data.
Yeah, it's an unlearning. It's an
unlearning. So with Mama Gina in particular, there was a moment when I think we were both in New York. She was attending a Gina workshop, and, the whole idea of thousands of women in there getting their life, it's like just shocking from this end. It's like, what the hell is going on in there? And it is in this notion that it's already here that makes coaching different than maybe therapy, or different than sales, or different than, you can be like me, just cut your hair this way, or, something like that. You can have what I have, just date a 6'8" behemoth. It should be fine. And that's not it at all. There's something about, at the core, there's magnificence in woman. Is it primarily or only women that you work with in your practice?
It's only women. At this point.
Okay. And the essence is you can be certain that you will meet yourself. At the very least, that's what you're going to get when you coach with you, or when you go on a workshop. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is an answer that most women, self-included, don't love to hear, right? It's like, you are your answer. The answer that you are looking for exists already within you. However, here's the catch. Just like you said, it's about getting the stuff out of the way. Part of the reason you haven't been able to access the answer is because there's so much stuff in the way. You're trying to access a doorway that's blocked with boxes that are decades old, and we've got to take them down. We've got to look at what's inside of them and break them down and put them in the recycling bin. And actually, not the recycling bin. We want to get rid of them. We don't want to repurpose them. But I'm here to help you take the boxes down so you can access the door, because you know that the door is there, right? You can feel it. Oh my gosh. And especially women, we wake up feeling it. Like, there is an aspect of myself that is coming through, and I can feel her there. I know she's coming. And if I cannot seem to put my finger on it, I cannot seem to access it directly. And that's what I'm here for. That's what a coach is here for, is to support you in identifying where the boxes are and unpacking them so that you can access the doorway to essentially the next evolution and iteration of yourself, But that's the answers. I don't have an answer for you. You know, I don't have your truth. I don't know your truth. And that's what makes this work so beautiful, is that your greatest power, your greatest gift is you being you here on this planet now, you know?
Let's see if this next question, if I can generate it actively, because I think there's something right on the heels of what you're saying here. From a man perspective, when I myself was running around as a half-baked trickster or, 20% or whatever I was doing when I was doing that, it might not have been attractive to have my woman know herself as well as, like, I was taking advantage of the fact that women don't know themselves when I'm just a half-baked out there.
Yes.
So this idea of having my woman go get her act together and know everything about herself so she's walking with authority inside her divine femininity, it's not that attractive to me. I'm not into that. That's a threat. What kind of man is interested in having a woman? I mean, excuse me for the transparency of the question, but what kind of man would be interested in having a woman in her full power? Because clearly she'll be way more powerful than any of us even ever thought of being. Like, why would I want my woman to have so much power that she could annihilate me with the flick of his tail? Why would I want that? What is in it for men? What kind of men want to hang out with women who hang out with you? Does it even matter? Like, who's out there? Like, it thins us out. There's only a certain group that's ready to hang out with authentic women.
I would agree with that statement. And I would also say that they are the men who are aware at some level that they are just as powerful. And that is what I think is the tricky part here. It's because just as there are women who are waking up to their own power, right? Like you speak to, like a woman who is awake to her own power, you don't get much by her. You know, it is tough to get away with some things. And also, she's also not here to shame and blame you for it either, right? She's in the space of the loving and also the very discerning. I'm very clear on what I will say yes to and what I will say no to as a woman. And the men, there are men who are aware of their power. They are aware that, oh my gosh, I am powerful and I am just as powerful as she is. 1, 2, I am not here to overpower her. There is no sense in me attempting to overpower her. What's possible if I join with her power?
So this is really important. This is really, really important. I think that when I say I'm, walking around half-baked, there's something about actually seeking to overpower. Seeking a woman who is willing to spar with me in a moment, and I'm going to win. I'm going to get you, and that's the way this is going to go, and then I win. And then there's emptiness. So I was looking in some ways for women who strive to be self-aware but hadn't yet made that jump, or outwardly say they're interested but really aren't. So do you run into those women, right? Outwardly say, I want to be self-aware like you, but they're not really ready.
My favorite example is the woman who comes to me and says, well, I want a partnership like yours, but I think I need to lose weight first.
Okay, good. So there you go. That's perfect.
She's one of my favorite examples of this. And like, I have so much compassion for her because been there, right? Thinking, oh, I could just get the man if I just maybe was a little bit thinner or some, whatever, fill in the blank there, superficial quality. And when I hear that, I go, oh, we've got some work to do, because this man, does he love your physique? Yeah. Is it one of his main focuses? Absolutely not. It's not. It's at a whole different level. And not only that, but in this partnership, it goes so far beyond physical in so many ways, right? The physical is a component for sure. And what you're going to meet within yourself and each other goes so far beyond 20 additional pounds. You know what I mean? And we got to see this firsthand at the birth of our son.
Yeah.
It's like, I had asked for an epidural. The epidural didn't work. Now I'm facing off with an aspect of myself that I was not expecting. And he's in the room standing by my side, watching me go through. He'll tell you, babe, the pain on your face, the expression on your face, it was one I had never seen before. And I was just so focused on you because I could tell you were in so much discomfort in that moment. And that's the stuff. It's like, if this man is going to stand with me through life's ups and downs and life and death and birth and all the things, my goodness, if 20 pounds is the biggest concern, I'm missing the mark, you know, in what this is really going to open up for me. So yeah, I totally get what you say around, you know, being the guy that walks around sort of half baked. And one of the triggering things for me in being aware and open to a partnership like this was I met a man who was not half baked. He stood in front of me and I felt so unequipped. I felt like he was seeing me naked and I was fully clothed. And I thought, oh my gosh, if this is the frequency of a king, I'm not ready. I've got work to do. And so I went to work, you know. Yeah. It really is that powerful, that different. And I don't blame people for wanting to remain half-baked. You know, the Netflix and chill, you know, is, I get it. And I also wouldn't trade this for the world.
Yeah. Talk a little bit. We can't go very much further without talking a little bit about, you know, what is the Ezra product and what type of frosting does that bring to the, you know, where we are now? What is the impact and what is the, you know, speaking of half-baked, it's the opposite of that. Like the cake was ready and here he is. So talk to us about this incredibly beautiful child that you have now born. And what's this like for you? And what's next? What's showing up for you with Ezra?
Wow. He has been just the most beautiful frequency. I mean, you got to see him and feel him already, but he is...
I held him. I don't know if you know that. Like I held him on his second day.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And he is such a complementary frequency to the dynamic that is our family. And he has called us forward really into deeply exploring the archetypes of mother and father. And even though I was already in the role of mother, right, with my son Elijah, who's 10, because I had stepped in so young with him, I didn't fully identify. And I don't think I dove in as deeply as was possible for me into the role of mother and what it really meant to mother. And even, you know, side by side, looking at how do we do this together, right? Ezra has brought in a deeper layer of togetherness. How do we work together? How do we tag team with each other on these nights when he's doing 2.5-hour naps throughout the night and we both have days tomorrow that we want to be awake and present for? How are we supporting each other, right? How are we communicating with each other? And how are we also creating the space to allow each other to move into this up level? Because it's been an up level for both of us. Literally, his birth was like this sonic boom in our relationship where both of us were like almost like launched into these trajectories of growth, right? And in parallel processes, how do we run in parallel processes and still come together and still come back and still come back and still come back? And all while unsubscribing from these narratives around parenting, right? We were in the intentional unsubscribing of parenting is hard. Having a newborn is hard. Having a newborn means you're in lockdown. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You're exhausted all the time. Your relationship, you know, fizzles out. We're intentionally undoing these narratives, right? And catching them and releasing them so that we can create something that exists beyond that narrative that is our own. And that's been a process that, again, it's all about truth and integrity, you know, and catching those thoughts that say, oh gosh, well, you know, I think you probably saw the photo of our first night out without him. And I want to say he was a month old. He was just about to be a month old. And here I am going, oh gosh, you know, is it bad for me, quote unquote, bad for me to leave my baby at a month old and go out for a night of fun? Does that make me a bad mother? Does it make me wrong? Right? Just these things that pop up that are so, I want to say common, and not just common, but they're in the collective narrative for mothers. And, you know, we took him over to my parents' house and my parents are like, look, he's happy. He's perfectly content, well cared for, loved on. You guys go have fun. We're good, you know, and having this awareness that the best way, the best thing that we could do for Ezra and Elijah is be in a happy relationship, is be in a relationship that is, and what I mean by happy relationship is not that we're happy all the time. It's that at the end of every single day, we choose each other because our love is there and our commitment is there, and we are both in service to creating this vision that is for the sake of us having the best life possible, whatever we decide that to be. And that's the best thing that we could do for Elijah and Ezra. And that has become more clear than ever with Ezra's arrival here.
Well, it's wonderful. And, congratulations. It's a spectacular time. It's like the baby comes. That's interesting. So the noise you're hearing is about our baby.
I was going to say, it sounds like a baby.
Yeah, we don't have baby humans, but we do have these three massive felines who we are being homeschooled by our three cats every day. And so we have Despacito, Winston, and Valentino. And gosh, I want to be careful sort of not detract from the power of what you're saying and maybe really add to it with respect to these cats because, I have two children of my own. I have two incredible children of my own. And for a while there, I had four children. My second marriage, we blended for 6 or 8 years. I had 4 teenagers, and it's just like that was a real juggling dadhood.
That's some soul curriculum.
That was it. That was what I did.
Yeah.
And now my kids are, living a great life down there in Texas, and we got these 3 cats. And to the point that what you're saying, because cats are, we could have a whole podcast. I'm sure they're out there about cats. The energy that these cats bring to the conversations that Alex and I are having at any given moment sort of represent the barometer of what's really going on. Like my cat will notice when Alex and I run into a snag somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And will let us know which one of us, always me, by the way, which one of us is out of line. Like, Fred, you're being an asshole. It's like, oh, I guess so. Then. Valentino, how about you get the hell out of here? Because I was enjoying being an asshole until you just showed me that I was being one. And at the same time, when the two of us are doing well, which is way more frequently than not, the level of peace and vibration and understanding that goes on in this family is indescribable. Like the 3 cats just lounge around like they're in their perfect home. Only if everything's okay, not just okay, thriving between my wife and I. It's extraordinary the impact of having a great relationship has on the world around us. And points a little bit to what I was saying before. I'm telling you, I'm speaking for any of the listeners who have ever seen or met you, that we're all really gifted just to be in the same space as you. Like, well, okay, they got our back. At least they got our back and representing possibility. But in the presence of Sanyika and Katie, or really in some ways you could say Katie, who has chosen then to be with Sanyika, there is a essence of a queen manning the tower, a queen manning the castle, a queen manning is not the right quick word. So there's this power of being a queen. And now this capital Q queen, is this a name that you've taken on for yourself? And if so, what does that even mean? And how do women work with that? Who says you're a queen? Or maybe they say,
oh my gosh,
how can I become a queen like you? Or all that.
All of that. When did this come to be? My goodness. There was a period of time in my evolution where it was before I met Sanyika. 2018, I want to say. I was in meditation on the back porch. I was sitting with a plant medicine, hape. You may be familiar with it.
I'm definitely familiar with it.
Sitting with hape, and had been doing the work with relationships for a few years at this point, really in deep study and deep integration and deep embodiment training around it. And had a vision where a couple well-known goddesses showed up to me in this vision and said, "You are the queen maker. You are the queen and you are the queen maker." And I was taken aback. All the questions come flooding through that you just asked. Who am I to be the queen? Why would I be a queen maker? I'm not even in partnership right now. How do you even move as a queen, right? There's so many lineages to go down, some that are beautiful and amazing and some that are awful and terrible. Like, what in the world? And coming out of that vision, and it just wouldn't leave me alone. And I decided, I will surrender and agree to this and step in as the queen maker. And so I did. I think my IG handle at one point was the queen maker, and developed a program called the Queen Maker and really moved in this direction. And shortly thereafter, Sanyika showed up. And what does it mean to be a queen? For me, stepping in as a queen and as the queen really means I am here to rewrite the story on what it means to be a queen, because I am in full ownership of my power, my purpose, my pleasure, my prosperity. I am in full embodiment of that. And I am also acknowledging that there's another component here, and that is the king. And there is something about the feminine that loves, and I'll speak for myself, that loves being at the top with a partner. Like, it used to be I wanted to conquer the mountain myself. And for me, there is something so beautiful. Like, even my nervous system just relaxes, even thinking about having a leader in my space who is a man. Being that I do not need to, nor do I want to make all of the decisions. I can rest in his presence. I can relax in his presence, right? The queen is like, she is capable of leading the army if she has to, and she does not have to unless she wants to. And that is something that is so profound for my system as the feminine. Just, it's amazing. I exhale every time I think about it, because that's what it is to my system. It's an exhale of like, I have been in the space to carry the torch. I know I can carry the torch. I know that I can. Do I want to, And that's really the yummy space that the queen moves in. She's fully aware and capable. There's no denying that. It's much more about how can I lead from a space of inspiration, and in many ways from the space of the muse, getting into the frequency of the muse, getting into the frequency of the inspiration behind a movement versus being the person on the ground for the movement. You know what I mean? So that, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a one sentence answer on what it means to be the queen, because it's so dynamic. And for me, it is that ownership of our power, our purpose, our pleasure, and our prosperity, and understanding that it's not solo, which I think is so powerful about the title of queen, is that it is not just the queen, it is the king and the queen. And there is just as much reverence from my perspective for the king as there is for the queen.
Beautifully well said. Thank you. The exploration here has been spectacular. It's my guess is, for those who didn't take off when I said drive carefully and who decided to stay into overtime, they get another dose of this drive carefully thing. And there's before they leave, what is up? What is up with you? What are you creating? And if someone's interested in at least following you, if not learning from you, or taking a course with you, or coaching with you, or collaborating, or just monitoring, how might someone do that with Katie?
Yeah, well, I am slowly stepping back into the coaching space.
Is this your first podcast since Ezra, by the way? Is this your
first podcast?
I totally love that. I thought about that. I was like, yay. As a man, I'm like, yay.
I thought about that this morning as well. I was like, wow, this is my first one since Ezra, since being married, since all the things, right? Yeah. And what a perfect way to kick it off with you, Fred. It's been such a great conversation. I adore you and how you move in this space. And so the best way to find me is probably either on Facebook or Instagram. On Instagram, I'm at Queen Katie Lynn. And you can go to theembodiedqueen.com if you want to explore some of the subliminal meditations that I have that are super powerful. There's one for power, purpose, pleasure, and prosperity on there. And I do have one-on-one coaching that is available. Slots are not open until November. So there is that time caveat. However, one-on-one space is one of my favorite places to work. And there will be a mastermind that is launching soon as well. So if the group space is something that people are more called to, the mastermind is coming. So that's how to step into the vortex, if people are feeling called. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's super great. And I love you too. And it's a unique relationship that we've developed over time for sure. And we have these foils now, there's me through Sanyika to you. There's you through Alexandra to me. And then there's me and you. And then it really has been a thrill to watch your growth and development and to just be there in honor of who really Katie Lynn is as a divine feminine goddess contribution. So thank you for being you. And
thank you.
A mom again,
Thank you. Yes,
Super cool.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So,
yes,
Fred. Katie, we're going to have the opportunity to talk to each other on and on, but our listeners are going to have to say goodbye to us now, at least for this round, and we'll have you back on again. I'm sure we'll interface in lots of ways. We get to do that professionally, personally, and all sorts of ways. So that's super cool, cosmically and telepathically.
For sure.
Welcome to Humanity. It's really been great. Thank you. Thank you for contributing such a beautiful sample and a beautiful peek at what it means to be an extraordinary, spectacular human being. Just someone who's really simply making a difference by taking one step at a time through the darkness and through the light and bringing stuff forth that otherwise may not have been noticed if we weren't being honest about what's really going on here and what's true. And then working with truth and having the possibility of creating relationship and creating power and creating things that otherwise could never occur in that partnership, not only with your loving other half, but with all of humanity. So there's a real essence of that emanates from you. And I speak for everyone in saying that we see that, honor that, and appreciate that. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fred. Thank you for being you and for spearheading this space so that we can experience more light here and more love here with each other on this planet. I appreciate you.
All right, listeners, thanks for hanging on. We will catch you on the next episode of Welcome to Humanity. Wasn't this awesome with Katie Lynn? And, whatever's going on for you, remember, it's really just humanity, and all of it is humanity. And there's an opportunity to really wrap yourself around every single piece and embrace it, because it's all you have, and it's all good. Even the part that's not good is worth acknowledging for the power that it is providing for your relationships and your life as you go. Welcome to Humanity. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you on the flip side. I love you all. Bye for now.